Where in the 1930s in a Milwaukee calm neighborhood. When Dolly, a sweet housewife, is excited to show her wealthy husband the piece of fabric she sewed together using a magazine as a reference, in hopes she could sell it. However, the excitement is not mutual. Fred is more interested in a discovery of hormones used on women to help them conceive. Not content with that, Dolly takes her design to a small sewing shop to help her achieve her vision. There she meets Otto, who's the seamster among other seamstresses. She takes a look into a magazine and is immediately interested in an article he wrote. But Otto is quick to take it away from her since he considers his writing is not suitable for a lady like her. Her day-to-day life was all about pleasing her husband. Fred, on the other hand, was completely fixated in his work, food, and being abusive towards her. So understandably, that and his weight gain just made Dolly feel less interested in him. Nevertheless, the idea of getting satisfied in some other way got stuck in her head. During a mealtime conversation, Dolly cleverly uses the opportunity to mention she wanted to sew a suit for the baby, but she couldn't since the machine has a problem. Fred's excitement doesn't last long because his wife clarifies she's not actually pregnant, even so she still wants to be prepared for when the baby comes. So Fred, persuaded by this statement, agrees in sending a repairman to their house. This repairman, of course, could not be other than Otto, the seamster at the small sewing shop. Dolly wears a rather seductive gown that shows her lingerie to receive him inside the house. To Otto, her intentions are yet not clear. That is until she starts reading a pulp fiction story while he inspects the sewing machine to end up realizing the machine is not only new, but there's no issue with it whatsoever. She makes sure to let him know that in case her husband asks about the job, he must tell him that the machine needs another piece from the factory to fix it. Naturally, Dolly, a very attractive woman, planted the seed of desire in the young lad, leading him to agree on the spot. So what started with a quick foot massage rapidly turned into a passionate sessions of love. That was just the beginning of many more, to the point where it was a routine to pay her visits frequently. However, Otto soon felt something wasn't right about her being a married woman. He wanted her all to himself, so took the chance and made Dolly the bold proposal of her getting a divorce. This was certainly ludicrous to her. Having left a pass of poverty, the life of wealthness just felt like the only way she could live now. So the only way in which they could be formally together would be if he somehow got rich or if Fred suffered a misfortune and died. And clearly people around the neighborhood had eyes. To address this, Dolly simply told a friend that the man who visited her often was her brother, whom Fred wasn't very fond of. So she just thought that the Christian thing to do was to invite him over for dinner from time to time. Still, she's very much aware of how cautious she should be from now on. So proposes to him to move into her attic to avoid arousing suspicion. Otto doesn't seem to be put off by the conditions, such as not being able to go out during daytime or quitting his job at the sewing shop. It seems like the perfect settlement between the two of them. If anything, it gives Otto plenty of time to write, which is exactly what he needed. A story worthy of publishing could turn him into an acclaimed author. That would be life-changing, he thought. Because the life he aspired next to Dolly could only flourish if he became successful. With all his basic needs covered, he poured himself into his work. He was constantly writing stories that he'll later read to Dolly. She couldn't be more fascinated with them. The potential she saw in him was evident. And so she shared how much she wanted to move to Hollywood with him as a famous author. Dolly had a tendency to imagine a different life, where she'll become an actress and meet many famous people. But every time she mentions anything of the sort to her husband, Fred, he'll get really angry at her, letting her know none of that will ever happen. So it just kept being a dream of hers. Time passed and with it came change. Fred's business wasn't nearly as lucrative as before, which prompts Dolly to start looking for a new provider, that of course without leaving Otto behind. But so far no one new has come into her life. She might want to leave him, but she can't afford to lose her stability. However, not everything is going bad. During the secret lover's anniversary, Dolly pops up an envelope that contains a letter from a publisher interested in his story. Otto was now a published author, but the feeling of hopelessness surrounding the status of his relationship was still there. It was a period of uncertainty and he wondered if it'll ever go away. To cheer him up, she tells him about this plan for going out. This was possible due to Dolly informing Fred she was going to visit her sick mother. So much time had passed since Otto would go out, so this was pretty big for him. They went to a bar to have a few drinks and dance. Typically before Otto moved to the attic this would have excited him, but after a while of being there he felt rather dizzy and asked Dolly to leave. Perhaps his new life was affecting him in more ways than he could think. Now a rare event happened. Fred took Dolly to a party. Although more like the two of them having fun, it was just Dolly who was enjoying her time there, dancing with some men. That made her feel more appreciated than by her own husband. Ultimately, this behavior was making him angry, thus leaving the party early was his approach. Once at home, Fred notices right away that someone broke into the house. Otto instantly rushes to the window of the living room to escape. After that incident, Dolly hands Otto Fred's gun to keep it safe. Was she implying something? He surely didn't pick up anything strange from that. Dolly's next move would be at the insurance company Fred had hired. She told Roy, the clerk, that it was worrying her his multiple episodes of memory loss. Wondering if she'll get some information about how much the insurance would cover if something were to happen to him. Dolly was a lucky woman in that sense because Fred never missed a single payment to cover the insurance premiums. And then the day came, where everything changed. Otto hears how Fred's abusing his wife. Doesn't think twice and comes down the attic pointing the gun at him. Fred, confused, asks who he is. To this Otto reveals he's Dolly's lover and has been living in the attic for the past 6 years. Fred is fuming so the two men start hitting each other until Otto pulls the trigger putting a stop to the fight. Now Otto's only chance at avoiding jail is to make the crime scene look like a robbery that went wrong. He takes Fred's watch and Dolly's necklace. Then he locks her in a closet and tells her to wait there till the cops come to her rescue. When the police arrive at the scene they notice a discrepancy with the story Dolly's telling them. It just doesn't make much sense to them that this robber didn't even touch Fred's wallet. However, Dolly's confident that nothing bad will happen, and focuses all her attention in getting Roy, the insurance clerk, to be under her spell for security purposes. She even goes as far as to give him the gun from the crime to get it out of the way. Right after that, is the perfect time to do what Dolly had envisioned for so long, moving to Los Angeles with Otto. They start a new life, but not quite the way Otto wanted. He's still unable to marry her due to his career not going so well. Later, Roy figures out he has been tricked by Dolly to hide the gun. So he goes straight to the police to tell them what he knows. Immediately the police grew suspicious of her again, and the need to solve the case takes them to the sunny state. But Dolly is very much prepared for this. Her lawyer receives the police officer right at the door of her new mansion. Otto, who's living there of course, has to hide himself. No one can know they're living together. Therefore, Dolly uses the opportunity to keep the lawyer closer to her as another love interest. This infuriates Otto, so he decides to surprise them while they're together having fun in the house. He comes down with a knife and reveals not only the relationship the two of them have, but also he admits to committing Fred's murder. The lawyer can't take anything else and leaves. Then Otto proceeds to tell Dolly he has confessed to the cops and they're on their way home. Both of them were put to trial. Dolly's defense was the lawyer she had an affair with. Even after knowing the truth, he was willing to stand for her, at least professionally. So the story he told was that innocent Dolly simply took Otto in the house because she felt safer that way. Due to the well-documented aggressive behavior of her husband Fred, it made sense she didn't want to be alone. He also implied that Otto fantasized of being with her and not the other way around. In the end, the jury is very clear with Otto's case. They found him guilty of manslaughter. As for Dolly, they were unable to reach a verdict, which essentially meant that she was free to do as she pleased. So yes, the published author was placed behind the bars, but contrary to what we might think, he ended up getting released soon because of the statute of limitations. Later on, he moved to Canada where he continued to publish his stories. And for what is worth, Otto was grateful to Dolly because she gave him something really interesting to write about. Because believe or not, this was based on a true story.